Trump had this event that was supposed to be a healthcare roundtable talking about his new healthcare plan. Hey, you want to guess the genius? You know how Obamacare is called Affordable Care Act? And the branding of Obamacare is kind of interesting. You can, I see. So you put the two words together. I see. Genius. Trump's thinking, what is his healthcare plan going to be called? The Great Healthcare Plan is literally the name. The Great Healthcare Plan. At one point during this press conference, he was like, I don't think I have this clip, but he was like, probably spent a minute talking about how he came up with the name. Everyone was saying maybe it'd be called the Lower Prices and Better Healthcare Plan of 2026. And I was thinking, we have to think of something better. So I used my big brain and I thought maybe it could be called the Great Healthcare Plan, like the big, beautiful bill. But we'll get to the actual specifics. There aren't many of what the plan is supposed to hold. But he shows up here, rambles for a while, and then does the roundtable portion and gets very impatient and starts saying, I got to go somewhere. I have an important meeting. And the way he says it makes you feel like, oh, maybe he's about to go have a meeting with like Zelensky or a NATO person. I'll tell you after I show you these clips what he was actually in such a rush to get to. And this is such a crazy exemplification of Trump in a nutshell, which is he literally doesn't have enough time to talk about healthcare, but he does have enough time for the thing I'm going to show you in a second, which is what he was actually headed off to. So here's the first of a few clips where he's getting irritated that he still has to be at this meeting.
Who sends his greetings, was hosting the stakeholders in Alaska who are going to be applying for these funds, working with CMS in our state. Over the last couple of days, we have over 300 people coming to these meetings on how to use this transformation fund to better healthcare in Alaska. And this is going to help my constituents, it's going to help every American, and it is really exciting. And I want to thank again.
So now he's slapping his lectern.
You, Mr. President, and your team.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. We're going to have to go very fast. We're going to have to go we are way behind schedule, and I have a couple of meetings that are very important. Nothing more important than this, but let's go. Come on, Bob. Rob?
Fire round.
Please.
Wait, did he call Bob Rob? By the way, there is nothing less visually appealing than Trump slouched over a table. I think that every time he's at one of these press conferences, that's just not, you need some sort of viewer discretion advisement whenever you show him slouched over a table. Okay, you can take that down. And it kept happening during this press conference.
At two hospitals, Moses Taylor and Regional in Scranton.
By the way, as always, as we continue through this and we get to the part where you learn the big mystery, what was he in such a rush to get to? Make sure you've clicked the subscribe button. It is free. It's very simple, but it makes a big difference to help grow this show and thus the principles that we stand for.
That we're imminently facing closure.
Right.
And it's been, and working with Dr. Oz, Administrator Oz, and the CMS team has been absolutely incredible on so many levels. And thank you again for intervening and shepherding us through that process. But when you're looking at Pennsylvania, we're going to receive.
So you heard him whisper to the person next to him, we got to finish this. We just got to finish this. Then this.
Investment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. 1 minute.
How about 30 seconds? How about 30 seconds, sir? As a small town kid from Glen Rose, Texas, population 1,200 where I grew up.
There's a joke there, but I don't need to make it. Y'all know. Aaron Rufar said okay. He said, lol, hours after cutting a healthcare roundtable short because I have a couple meetings that are very important, a swollen-looking Trump leaves the White House on his way to Mar-a-Lago for the weekend. So you're thinking, oh, is Mar-a-Lago? No. It gets better, but here's the reporting on that.
He just left a little while ago for Andrews Air Force Base, where he's headed down to Florida to spend the weekend, and now the president coming up to the microphone. Let's listen.
There's something wacky about being at a pre-planned event and going, I don't have time for this. We're going to lower healthcare costs. It's great healthcare. And being like, this is so boring. But then having time to gaggle with the press before you get on the helicopter. Couldn't you have just cut that and then stayed a little longer? But Here's what he was in such a rush to get to. Here's why he didn't have time to talk about healthcare for longer. He was going to an event in honor of himself, naming a boulevard after him. That's what he said. I have important meetings. This is not an important meeting. So he could be presented, I'll show you it, with President Donald J. Trump Boulevard. That's what all the rush was about. Trump cuts off work early to name a road after himself, says the Daily Beast. The president's attending a ceremony outside his Mar-a-Lago resort. That's not an important meeting.
Of the people, Gina, so many of the people in the room, they helped so much. It's incredible. So I'm tremendously honored that the main boulevard from Palm Beach International Airport to the beautiful Mar-a-Lago is being renamed in my honor. That's a very important stretch. A lot of people, a lot of important people, and I don't care if they're important or not, but important and not important people travel on that road. But I love the people of Florida. I love.
And that's what he was. Come on. Now, this part was funny. He was trying to say that they locked down the southern border, but they're there to talk about a boulevard. So he says twice that we've secured the southern boulevard and then tries to do that thing where instead of going, oh, silly me, I said boulevard, I meant border. Instead, he acts like he meant to say it and goes, well, we've secured the southern boulevard. And also, in addition to that, the southern border, which is really good, which I don't know what securing the southern boulevard even means.
Better than they've ever done before. They're up 78% in many cases. But starting on day one, we fully secured our southern boulevard and stopped and think of it, as we were securing southern boulevard, making Florida great, we're also securing a thing called the southern border and making that great.
No, sorry. Nope. Don't do that to us. Really? You're going to try to make us feel like the idiots and go, oh, no, he meant Southern Boulevard, which is making listen to that one more time. It's always the same pattern. He has a brain glitch. He says, think of it or think of this. And then he tries to figure out how the two concepts merge. Like when he kept saying, instead of Anwar, he kept saying Bagram. Instead of something in Alaska, he started talking about something in Afghanistan. So then he said, once he realized it, he went, so as we gave up Anwar, we also gave up Bagram, which how those two things connect, I don't know. Delusion.
But starting on day one, we fully secured our southern boulevard and stopped and think of it, as we were securing southern boulevard, making Florida great, we're also securing a thing called the southern border.
Nice.
I'm not cognitively.
No, you saved it. And then we'll go back to this roundtable to see if we can derive any substance.
And I said, Emmanuel, yes, Donald, thank you so much for calling. Oh, I said, you're not going to like this call. You're going to have to get your drug prices up. No, I will not do that. I said.
So as a reminder, he has the same accent for everyone. Oh, no. No, he has two accents. He has the anyone who is either American or he doesn't know how to do their accent. So that covers most people. He'll say, a general came in, they said, no, Mr. President, we can't do that. And then he has any accent he thinks he can nail, like that one. Oh, Donald. My wife came to me and she said, oh, no, Donald, do not do that dance. He has the two accents. Then you have this.
We have a couple of Republicans. Thomas Massey always votes no. He's like, something wrong with the guy. If you have any clinical psychiatrists in there, maybe go check out his mind. But he always votes no. He's a very bad person.
Actually, Thomas Massey votes with Republicans, I think 90% of the time or something, super high. He just called out Trump over the Epstein files. So that's really why Trump is upset with him. Then you have this.
Understood how to deal with him, and I'm the tariff king, and the tariff king has done a great job. And I hope we win the Supreme Court case, because if we don't, be a shame for our country. Be a shame. We have.
Speaking of himself in the third person, the Tariff King has done a great job. I feel like he thinks that doesn't sound as narcissistic if he gives himself a... Because if he says Donald J. Trump is doing a great job, everyone would be like, ooh, that kind of sounds weird. So instead he said, I'm the Tariff King, and the Tariff King is a sexy MFer. And then that gives some plausible deniability or something. Then on the healthcare plan, you have this.
So I had Bobby and I had Oz. We
Oh, I think this is the part where he describes the genius of coming up with a healthcare plan.
had everybody in there. We had a whole group of people and were trying to come up with, so we're saying, the cost reduction plan that gives you good health care. And I said, it's too long. It's not going to sell. I said, we had more plans. And they wanted to get the words cost reduction in there, Lola, especially you. They wanted cost reduction in, and then they wanted great health care in. I said, look, you can have one or the other, but it gets too long. We're talking about the name of a plan. So we got it down to 7 or 8 words, and which is far too long. Nobody can remember that much. And I said, how about just call it, because this is the great health care plan. Now, a great plan has to be cost effective, otherwise it can't be a great plan. That's the way I looked at it. So we have a very glamorous name. It's called the Great Health Care Plan, not the Unaffordable Care Act. I don't like that name. This is called officially the Great Health Care Plan.
So you know that I almost promised this to you. I can almost say this for certain, that Trump knows the following about the plan he's rolling out. It's called the Great Health Care Plan. And he remembers how they came up with that name, which was, he says great a lot. Like, Make America Great Again, for example, and thought, that sounds on brand. And then that's about what he knows about it, which is why when people are actually talking about the nuts and bolts, he gets very bored and wants to go name a border after himself, to flip it around like he did. But health policy researchers slammed the vague proposal. This is from Ross Story. Georgetown's Edwin Park warned the plan would send the number of uninsured soaring, claiming it appropriates the cost-sharing reductions under the Affordable Care Act, which would have the effect of reducing premium tax credit amounts for those eligible for subsidies while lowering unsubsidized premiums. The result would actually be more uninsured, as low-income people see smaller subsidies and higher premiums they cannot afford. He added the plan includes absolutely no detail, even though the president and the administration have been promising a credible health care plan within 2 weeks for many, many years. Instead, as in the past... Yep, this plan is more about increasing the number of uninsured on top of the 10 million who will already lose coverage under H.R. 1. It's called the Big Beautiful Bill, the budget reconciliation law from last summer. So the tough thing about analyzing this, one thing I promised you all I would stop doing is covering the propaganda of his press conferences when we don't know much about the substance yet. And so that's why when he goes, here's what the plan's going to do. It's going to lower costs. It's going to expand coverage. It's going to still protect pre-existing conditions. It's going to make everything better, and it's going to be perfect. It just feels like we've fallen into that trap too often of, oh, we're announcing a new massive investment. And you're like, okay, I guess if that's happening, that's good in infrastructure, and then never actually manifests. So let's wait for the actual result. And especially here, I'm not going to fall into that because they don't actually have anything fleshed out. And this was a lot of big bullet point items, some that you could see some concern in, others that as a headline sound fine. But then you try to understand the specifics and you get about nowhere, which of course, that's what happened his first term. That's when it's going to keep happening because the direction they want to go with healthcare is never actually in the interest of a better healthcare system. Because that would just be agreeing with us, and they can't do that. Dr. Oz had an interesting little stat he was aware of, but he doesn't seem to acknowledge the reason behind that stat.
Alabama has no OBGYNs in many of their counties.
I'll do it. Let me do it. Mibbit. I can fill in for the OBGYNs. I'll OBGY therein.
Has no OBGYNs in many of their counties. So they're doing something pretty cool. They're actually having robots do ultrasounds on these pregnant moms. So we can actually get those images back to the big center. So we know if the child has a problem, and we know if that mother's at risk. We have one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the world, in the country with the best medicine in the world. It's often stated, people ask, does healthcare stink in America? Well, they don't like it. Would you leave America to get healthcare elsewhere? Nobody leaves. We have the best healthcare if you can get
That's literally not true. What? No way you're about to say this.
the best healthcare if you can get to it. We don't want rural America left behind anymore.
Yeah, so maybe expanding access to coverage is the idea as opposed to reducing it. Because you're right. If you have the means, you can get really great healthcare. The problem is all the people who don't and how right-wing policies often leave them behind. But he says that there aren't any OBGYNs in many of Alabama's counties. Could you figure out why that might be? Of course, it's because of the extreme laws on reproductive rights that Alabama has implemented. The terrible environment for those sorts of healthcare providers that has been created in Alabama. He also talks about the maternal let's look this up actually. Highest maternal mortality rate states USA. The states with the highest maternal mortality rates in the United States consistently includes those in the Deep South like Tennessee, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Arkansas. Red state, red state, red state, red state. And that's very tragic. And it's important that even people who don't vote Democratic should be helped and uplifted, of course. Unlike the ideology of Trump, I think people I disagree with politically should still be helped whenever they're disadvantaged or experience disproportionate problems. But another little example of maybe right-wing policies are failing on the healthcare front. Dr. Oz talks about Trump babies.
As an aside, by the way, we've talked about the most favored nation drug pricing. One of the first companies and areas we used most favored nation drug pricing is fertility drugs. That's why we're going to have so many Trump babies, because we've dropped dramatically the most expensive part of the fertility space. And so
Why does Bobby look so sad through this whole press conference? He doesn't even ever glance over. Trump at least is stretching out his nuss to go look over at Dr. Oz. Bobby's just... And yeah. So anyways, Dr. Oz is saying Trump's going to be the fertility president, and we're going to get lots of Trump babies.
You're my daddy.
Yikes. We will see. And then Trump lied about different things. Okay, let's just call it there. I think you get the point of that event.